So I'm Desiree.
I'm Darius.
And we are the co-founders of Young, Black, and Professional. So today we wanted to come and talk to you guys about the differences in a PWI and an HBCU and which one prepares you better for the real world, for life after college, finding a job.
Yep, we get this question a lot in our emails, so we think it'd be a great idea to touch on it and see what you guys think. I went to Southern Arkansas University. It's a PWI, and then I started my PhD at Troy University, which is also a PWI. So I've been in that space my entire college career.
So I went to undergrad at the Florida State University, and I went to grad school at the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Period. So I did my master's degree and my doctoral degree both at FAMU. So, you know, I have more of a mixed experience, like he said. It was definitely a transition and a culture shock, which we'll get into. But, you know, we wanted to talk to you guys today about, you know, which one we think prepares you most for the real world and for life after college and navigating that world. So we can go ahead, and Darius, you want to just kind of start us off?
One of the things that we talked about was just professional dress. Where I went and got my undergrad at, it was way more lax. It kind of depended on the program that you were in. If you were in the business program, you were more expected to wear the professional dress. But if you were working or if you were working towards a degree in athletics, it was pretty lax, so to speak, unless you were going to get intern hours or something at a school. If that was the case, then you were expected to dress professionally.
Yeah, so I mean, at Florida State, I would say that everybody wore pajamas to school. Well, not everybody, but people wore sweatpants, pajamas. Definitely was not a dress code at all. However, one of the things that I did, the only way I learned about professional dress in undergrad was through healthcare sorority that I was a part of. It was Kappa Psi Psi healthcare sorority, and they actually taught me what it meant to dress professionally, how do I dress for an interview, things I literally did not know. Now, when I came to FAMU, and granted I did come from grad school, the first day of class, I wore a hoodie and jeans, and I got called out. And I was like, what? I gotta dress up to come to school? Even though it's in the evening time, this is grad school. But one thing that I quickly learned was that they take their grad programs very seriously and they want to prepare you for a professional career after that. Now, undergrad at FAMU, like I said, I didn't do undergrad, but I heard stories, I talked to people, they dress to the T for class. You come to class in your pajamas or in sweatpants, they think you sick. They think something wrong with you. Because girls be out there, now granted FAMU is on the highest of 7 heels, and girls be out there with heels on, stiletto heels, walking to class like they're crazy. But it's definitely a fashion show. However, I think that it's a great representation, you know, for just kind of the real world. You know, you want to look put together when you're at work. You want to dress nicely, just to dress nicely and to, you know, to show that part of you. So those are things that I will say that was a big difference for me and just kind of understanding the two.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's a great culture to have at your institution or your university, because in all reality, there's never going to be a time, unless you own your own business, which everybody should try to at some point. But if you own your own business, then that's the only time you can literally clock in with pajamas on. So
yeah, or if you work from home, like a lot of people do now.
Yeah,
you know, and
I'm sure everybody works with pajamas on now.
Yeah. The next thing, networking. So I know for me, networking from going from Florida State to FAMU is definitely different. I feel like that FAMU's community is a little more close knit. So people that are successful that come out of FAMU, a lot of times they really want to reach back and give back and mentor students who are coming up. So I think that that's one of the differences that I noticed, just kind of right off the bat. Like, however, you know, at Florida State you have a lot of successful people, of course. However, it's on a bigger scale. Like you're talking about a school with 40,000 students. You know, and that number changes and fluctuates, and new students come in every year. So we're thinking about that. I mean, it's just like, it's different. But I think I got a great experience, you know, through both. But I would say that most of my professional connections in helping me to get a job and to move up have came from FAMU.
Yeah, so the school I went to, Southern Arkansas University, it's a smaller school. In athletics, played on the Division II level. We had a student count of about 3,500, so not nearly as close to what Florida State is. Or FAMU. But, I mean, just being in those classrooms, it provided a different atmosphere. So you're actually in the classrooms of about, at the most, 25. So you actually get the opportunity to have that lateral networking where you speak and connect with your fellow students in the classroom, as well as you have the opportunity to create a relationship with your instructor and your advisor, and you can literally go to their office whenever it's their conference period or whatnot and sit down and have an hour-long conversation. And that's just one of the benefits that I had going to a smaller school compared to Desiree going to Florida State, which I'm sure she'll touch on how it's different. But I mean, as a total, as far as networking, I would think that it's more of, it depends on where you go. I mean, everybody doesn't have a billionaire that graduated from their institution or university. So it depends on where you go. It depends on how you network with the people that you're in class with, along with your teachers and your advisors, and then are you reaching across campus? Even though you may not be a business major, maybe you can reach out to one of those instructors in the business field and seek guidance and mentorship from somewhere in that department as well.
Yeah, okay. So the next thing, professional conferences. So I will say that at Florida State, and it could just be a difference in being in undergrad versus grad school. And I think, you know, Darius brought up a good point about him going to a smaller school. And I think with FAMU being a smaller school too, even though it was bigger than SAU, I think FAMU has maybe about like 10,000 students a year. It's still a lot smaller in comparison to Florida State. But I think that you have more of an opportunity to really get to know your professors, to get to know just a lot of the people that have went there and graduated there, with it being a smaller school. So I think, you know, sometimes people look down on smaller schools, but honestly, it gives you a leg up a lot of times. But the next thing, professional conferences. So I don't know, in undergrad, Darius, did you go to any professional conferences in undergrad?
Not in undergrad.
Yeah, and I never went to any in undergrad either that I could remember. There are always kind of scarce opportunities to go there. But grad school, now that was different. So, and I'm not even sure, because Darius, and you went to PWI for grad school. So I went to FAMU for grad school. And we did have funding to go to conferences. So in my master's program, we would have to raise some money. So it wasn't like money's just overflowing. We would have to raise money sometimes, but we would all go collectively. Like I think my first plane trip was to Chicago for the American Public Health Association conference. So I don't know, was it a difference with you?
Yeah, it was kind of different. I don't know if we had the funds or not, but we weren't aware of those different conferences or anything. My first time being exposed to those opportunities was when I started my PhD at Troy University. But I think that may be like, some of the reasons for that may be because we're an up and coming program. We're still trying to get our feet up under us. So
yeah. So yeah, I think that just may be a difference. However, you know, when we talked about in our last video, networking, online networking, take a look at that. but that is a big deal. And I think that networking at conferences and networking just kind of with alumni, that is a key ticket. And if you go to an HBCU, you go to a small university, I feel like, in my personal opinion, it's a lot easier to just kind of connect and network, because since the community is so small, you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody else that knows somebody. So you already have that kind of connection. It's more of a community feel. So clubs and organizations. So, I think that the Divine Nine Greek organizations, they're everywhere. At HBCUs, I think they're a little more lit at HBCUs than at PWIs. I will say at Florida State, they did have, Union Wednesday, where they had all the fraternities and sororities stroll. But we also had, in undergrad, we had professional organizations, clubs, which I think I mentioned earlier, Kappa Psi Psi, the healthcare sorority I was a part of. And it taught me a lot about professional dress and, throwing professional events and networking with other organizations to get them to collaborate together on events. So I was able to get a lot of professional experience from there. Now at FAMU, we still had, Divine Nine, we had professional organizations. There were a lot of different chapters. So I think that there, honestly, from when we're talking about clubs and organizations, I don't see a big difference in my opinion in, how from going from FSU to FAMU and looking at their structure. But, just at FAMU, it's of course more black people. But FSU, it was pretty diverse in the people who were in there.
Yeah, we had the Divine Line as well, and we were very small compared to her schools. So we had those clubs and organizations. We've talked about some of our experiences, and a lot of the clubs and organizations that she had at FAMU or Florida State, we had something very similar, maybe a different name. So I don't think that too much, whether you go to HBCU or PWI, I don't think that makes a big difference as to whether or not it'll prepare you.
Yeah. So the last thing we wanted to touch on, and I think probably the most important thing in my opinion, is the culture of the different schools. So honestly, when I first came to Florida State, I had a culture shock because I came from a very small town, and I got to campus. So I was in this program called the CARE program when I first got in, and it was very diverse. So it was a lot of black people, Hispanic people, it was some white people in there. So it was a mixture, but it was definitely heavily minority focused. But then when I came, and that was for the summer, we all stayed at the same dorm and did classes together. Then when I got to FSU in the fall, I did not see any black people anywhere, and I was like, I'm walking, I can just remember the feeling of walking on campus, and I'm like, I feel so lost. Like, I don't see anybody that I know. Like, I don't see anybody that look like me. I'm in a class of 300 students, and I'm the only black person, and I just felt like lost and helpless. And then, going to FAMU and visiting FAMU, it was a whole nother culture shock. It's like, oh, this is where all the black people at. Like, they over here, But, and, I've heard people say things like, oh, HBCU doesn't prepare you for the real world because the real world doesn't look like that. You're not going to work at a place that's all black people. However, I think that people don't realize that HBCUs are diverse as well. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just black people at HBCUs. It's, you have Asian people, Hispanic people, you have white people at HBCUs. It's a lot of diversity going on there.
And just to piggyback off of Desiree, I have a Caucasian classmate in my PhD program. She actually went to HBCU for undergrad. She played softball there. And one of the things that we had a discussion about was what it looks like as far as a PWI versus HBCU. It was one of the topics in the class, and she was letting us know that she was expecting to see at HBCU the majority of black people, and she was going to be kind of like the minority, but she found out that that wasn't true, and that it was one of the most diverse campuses she had ever been on. even when she was visiting, trying to decide what school she wanted to go to. And that went from staff members to faculty, all the way down to coaches. So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point to make. But I think definitely the cultures are different, I will say.
At my school, we were a PWI, but the minorities that were on campus there, I mean, it was a close-knit group. Of course, there were groups. I mean, you had the football team and the basketball team, and then you had the Divine Nine. Then you had a combination of people that played sports and people that were in Greek organizations. And then you had band and people that did nothing, but they were cool with football and the Greeks and all that. So it was a close-knit group. So I kid with her all the time, and I say it was still like an HBCU kind of. She tells me no, but I mean we had a very close-knit group and everything, and everybody knew everybody because it was way smaller.
But it's a difference when your professors look like you too, though.
Yeah, there is a big difference.
So when your professors are black, like, it's different. It's totally different.
So in my undergrad experience, I had one black instructor.
I had none at FSU.
Really?
I had one. She was a teaching assistant, though. She was not an actual professor. She was a TA. Mm-hmm. But she was great. I loved her. Like, I loved her so much.
I think one thing, just being at the PWI, that I noticed is that there are some good teachers that are not minorities, and they really do care about your future. And I know just from my experience, there's probably about 3 instructors / advisors that I had that they still call me to this day, and we talk on the phone for hours about what's going on in the field and what's going on with me. And so you do have those teachers that you run into that are truly invested in your education and in your success, but
they're far and few between. They're far.
Yeah. But that's not always the case, unfortunately. And I would be lying to say that there were some classes that I didn't pass because of the color of my skin, but that's neither here or there.
But yeah, so I think just thinking about that with what Darius said, like I said, FSU, I had no black professors, full professors. But then I went to FAMU, and it was such a difference because my professors actually cared about me, and they wanted to see me succeed. They knew what my mom did because they asked those questions, and they actually really showed me that they cared, and I wasn't just another number to them. So I felt, for my mental health, I felt like that was amazing, Like, that was great. And I think, when you came to my dissertation defense, you could see the difference in being at an HBCU.
Yeah. It almost felt like, and just from being in my PhD program, I almost felt like almost anything you do it's going to be criticized, but it's not criticized in a way to make you better. It's more criticism to, hey, this is wrong, you need to get this fixed, as opposed to, this is wrong, but let me explain to you why it's wrong and what we can do to fix it.
It's more of a joint partnership, I felt like.
Yeah, it's more like a partnership and not I'm the teacher, you're the student, you're going to do what I tell you to do, and if I say it's wrong, it's wrong, and
figure it out.
Figure it out. I'm not about to explain to you why it's wrong. Yeah.
And then, when I wanted to talk about topics, I think we're encouraged at FAMU and at HBCUs to focus on topics of interest, that focus in on the African American community. However, if we want to talk, if I said, hey, I want my dissertation to be about racism and how racism impacts maternal mortality, my professor would have been like, okay, let's go for it. That's a great topic. Here you go. Here's some resources. But then when you go to a PWI, I'm not saying you can't focus on that, because you definitely can. And there are a lot of professors who encourage that and who work in that area there. However, you may feel a little more skeptical with, bringing that topic to light, because one, your professors may not have much experience in thinking about disparities or thinking about focusing in on minority communities and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, you know, I know a lot of you may not be thinking about going for a PhD, but some of you might. And who your professor is makes a big difference, your major professor, because you want that person to have experience and knowledge about the area that you want to dive into. Like, I focus in on infant mortality, and my professor was very knowledgeable about that, so she was able to help me and provide me resources about that, and not only just infant mortality, but infant mortality in the Black community. So she was able to provide me with a lot. But if you get a professor that doesn't know that area, then it's kind of like y'all both learned at the same time, and it's not much help to you.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we forget that instructors are human. So the morals and values that they have outside of the classroom, a lot of times that can play a major role in how they grade you, how they feel like they should lend a hand out to you, unfortunately.
Personal biases.
Yeah, so in my PhD program, I did run into an instructor that, naturally you're gonna talk about what you have experienced. So a lot of my work has been on diversity and inclusion in the athletic space. And I did run into an instructor that felt offended about the disparities I was discussing when it comes to human resources. And she didn't feel like the topics that I was discussing was relevant to issues in human resources, and it was a big ordeal. But that's just one of the things that you run into at PWI, unfortunately. So that's just another thing to consider.
Yeah, but I think, we talked a lot today about just kind of like the differences in a lot of different areas, but I think that no matter the school that you choose, both of them have major benefits to you and what you want to do in your career, and both can really help you continuously be prepared for the professional world. So no matter which one you choose, they both have benefits.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that one of the big things that Desiree and I recognize is that, like she said, it doesn't matter what school you go to, it's about how you use it to your advantage to help you learn and grow. And we're both in administrative roles, leadership roles, and we both were prepared. And it was one of the things that I was worried about going to a smaller school. If I wanted to continue on my education, would they be able to provide me an education to where I'm able to succeed in a master's degree program or at a PhD program? And that was obtained. So that's just another thing to think about. I wouldn't stress on whether or not you're going to be prepared for work because you're at a certain school. There's so many schools out there, and there's so many people that are succeeding, no matter if it was one of the top level schools in the country or if it was a small D2 like I went to.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you got something out of this video that can help you with your journey, whether you're deciding on whether to choose a HBCU or PWI, you're already at one, and how you can get the most out of it and really grow professionally. Download our free career cheat sheet. It is on our website, it's on our bio on Instagram, it's on LinkedIn, it's everywhere. So download it, get you some free tips. It's just our gift to you to kind of help you succeed. And if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, our website, send us an email. We are definitely open, and we're here to help you. That's what we want to do. That's the point of this. So, all right, guys. Bye.